Okay, we're going to do the intro to Adobe Flash assignment, and I'm going to go ahead and open up Flash. It looks like this, and everything that we do in Flash is going to be ActionScript 3.0. All right, so when you first open it, this is called the stage, and right over here you've got your frames per second, 24, size. You can click and drag to change the size, or you can just type it in. And we're going to keep it at 550 by 400. Then you've got your stage and the stage color. So you click here, and you can choose any color you want. Just make sure that it is different than white, so that I know you can change it. And we'll just go through. We've got your regular selection tool, sub-selection tool. We're going to use the rectangle first. So if I click and hold on the rectangle, being a little laggy. But when you click and hold, you'll see there is the primitive, there we go, regular and the primitive. And we're going to use the regular rectangle. And right here, this little pencil shows you the stroke color. And then this is the fill color. And some of these options are grayed out because we can't change them, but there's a stroke. So I'll go ahead and set it to 4. You can see that you can change the stroke to different kinds of, things. I'm just going to leave it at solid. You do too. And then you've also got your width profiles. And unfortunately, this recording thing that I use also makes my computer run a little slow. Okay. So go ahead and just going to draw a rectangle. And if you take the regular selection tool, and you click once on your rectangle. Once my computer catches up. I'm sorry, it's a little slow. But you'll see that this little kind of speckled pattern appears. And you can now click and you can drag it around. You might notice that the stroke did not go with. So if I Control Z, I can put it back to before it moved. And then if I double click on the shape, you'll notice that those little speckles now are over the stroke as well, and now I can click and drag and move the whole thing. So just make sure to double click if you want things to move together. Now if you click away so nothing is selected, and then I hover over the side, you'll see this little curved thing appear, and when you do that, you can actually click and drag, and you can curve. You can drag it different directions. All over. You can also click on a stroke, just one side of it, and it becomes detachable. So I can move my stroke apart from the actual shape itself, and I can either move the whole stroke or I can move just one piece. So if I click on it twice, it selects everything, but not that one because it's not connected anymore. Also, another little moving tool is if I come to a corner, instead of a curved line, you get this kind of right angle. And that allows you to move the whole corner of the shape. This side might not have it because I don't have a corner anymore. Yes. Oh, no, it worked. There we go. So I can change things, stretch it out, move it around all I want. Okay, now if you take the oval tool, and we'll just use the regular oval tool, and if I draw an oval, and I'm going to Control Z and change it up a little bit. Let's switch the color to something else. Oops. And that works. Okay. Now that tool, draw my little oval. There you go. Now if you take your selection tool and you double click so that I select the whole thing and I move it, you will see that it took a chunk out of my shape. That's because when you work in Flash, it has this mode. It's a blend kind of mode that makes it so everything that you draw together that's on the same layer is going to be combined with each other. The way that you can avoid that is if I take the oval tool and come down here, and you see this little, it's called object drawing, and it is a circle inside of a square. If I turn that on, and now I draw, and then use my move tool to move it around, It's separate. It doesn't combine with things. But in a lot of cases, I don't want this. It just depends on what you want it for. So I'm going to turn it off, and then I'm going to draw a line. And if I draw my line across anything, come on, line tool. Just being a little slow. There we go. See, and there's my stroke color, there's my stroke width. So I'll just click and drag to make a line. Then we're going to use what's called the width tool. The width tool is right here. And if I click on it to select it, it only works on lines, so I could use it on this, anything that was a stroke, or I can use it on this line. And you'll see that this little dot appears. And when you click and drag with the mouse, you are changing the width of your line. And the cool thing is not only can I come to this and then edit it, so come over those little blue dots and I can change things, but I can add more. Click and drag on this one, make it kind of look like it's feather, click and drag down here, make it huge. If you don't like something, you can just click on it so it's blue and press the delete key and it goes away. And you can add as many as you want to give it all sorts of just a different look. So I love the width tool. I think it's kind of fun. So now what I'm going to have you do is you're going to make a new layer. So you come down here to new layer and you click new layer. And if you double click on the name of the layer, it lets you rename things, and we're going to name this stick figure. And then you're going to use the paintbrush. So come over here to the paintbrush. And the paintbrush is considered a fill tool. So I'll switch it up to a different color. And if you notice, you've got the brush shape right here. So you could use squares, rectangles, circles, and then you have the size of it. So go ahead and just draw a little stick figure guy. And you want to make sure that this is off, because in order for this to work, your stick figure needs to be made up of all just one piece. And I'll do these little arms. The cool thing about Flash is that it kind of automatically smooths things for you. So even though I did kind of jagged lines, they smoothed up a little bit, which is cool. Now we're going to use what's called the bone tool. And the bone tool will only work in one object, so that's why this little stick figure guy has to be all by himself on a layer. And I'm going to click and I'm going to drag through his head. And then the bone will be black, and I'm going to click and drag down to, where his arms are. And I'll click one more time down to where his legs split off. Then I'll click and drag to split off into the leg. Come back up, click and drag to the other leg, and then go until it turns black, and then click and drag into the arm and the other arm. And you'll see it made this new layer called Armature. This is an animation layer that allows you to move things. So if I click on my selection tool and I grab one of these points, it now will move his little arms. It's not perfect. You can see that it kind of distorts. This arm in particular didn't work out so well, but the legs are working pretty good. So make him do the splits. And you can see that, yeah, it deforms a little bit, so it's not perfect. But for really basic animations, it works great. So you can just make him go up and down, have him do jumping jacks or something. Okay. Now we're going to use what's called the Polystar tool. So click on Polystar. And no options are coming up for Polystar. That's because I still have this selected. So I need to use my selection tool to click away so nothing is selected, and then I can go to Polystar. So when I click on Polystar, eventually my computer catches up. There we go. So I've got, the stroke and the fill. There's that. Everything's kind of the same as the other shape tools except for this options button. And I have a polygon, and I can choose how many sides, or I can switch it to a star. So let's say I want to do a 10-sided star, and the lower I go, the pointier it's going to be. The higher I go, the less pointy. So let's say I'm going to do 0.75. Say OK. Now if I try to draw right now, it's going to say the current layer, it's a kinematics pose layer, and it doesn't support drawing. Okay, so I just need to make sure I go to layer 1. So I'm just going to click on layer 1. Goodness, there we go. And with the draw tool, I will draw my star. Okay. Now because I didn't have object drawing mode on and it's on the same layer, it's connected, so if I try to move this star, it's going to take chunks out of whatever it's touching. That's okay for this though. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to File, Import, and then Import to Stage. Import to Library is something that it kind of brings it in so you can use it later. Import to Stage means you're using it right now. And if you just go ahead and go to Libraries and click on Pictures, go to Sample Pictures, and choose one of those. And it's going to come in very, very large. Also notice that because it was the last thing to come in other than the stick figure, it's above everything. Now let's say I want to make this picture in the background. I need to right click on it. Right click, distribute to layers. And when I do that, it's going to make a new layer down here. You'll see it pop up as soon as my computer stops thinking about it so hard, called Chrysanthemum, which was the name of this file. You could double click and call it background, but I'll just leave it as is. It's very large, so if you come over to here, the Free Transform tool. So I click on Free Transform. And then these little squares show up. So if you hold down Shift, it'll shrink down proportionately. Once again, mine's a little delayed reaction because it's slow. Okay, sorry about this guys, but my computer is freezing all the time I try to shrink this. So you imported one picture and you need to use this tool right up here, the Free Transform tool, third one down, in order to resize it. You can resize it, you can rotate it. So I apologize that mine won't do it for you. And then you go to File, Import, Import to Stage, and choose a second picture and do the same thing, okay? Just so you have two, that's part of the rubric, okay? The last thing that you're gonna do, and I'm gonna put it on layer 1 so that it's not on the behind things, and you're gonna grab the text tool. So things are selected, that's why it's not working, so I need to use my selection tool, select off everything, and then go back to the text tool. Okay, you'll see that the default font is Times New Roman, so just click here and switch it to something that looks really different from Times New Roman. Okay, once again my computer's being really slow, I apologize. At least it's giving you lots of time to follow me, right? So when you click on this, all the different text options will show up. Then you have your size here, so 60 points, you can do less, you can do more, just make sure it's easy to see. And then you have your color, so make sure you change those. And then you just come out here with your text tool, and you click. You can also click and drag to create a box. We'll see if this pops up before my time limit of 15 minutes ends. And I type in my name, Madison. You can do your first name, you can do your last name, you can do both. Okay, so after the text has appeared and everything looks good, you want to go and File, Export. Because we didn't animate anything on this one, we can just export image. And then JPEG, name it Intro to Flash, and go ahead and save it. And mine is huge, yours won't be that big. Say okay. All right, and you're done. Turn it into Canvas. Make sure to check that you have these, but you should. So good luck. If you have any questions, because that was a little slow, just call me over.